Hi, I'm Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy Segment Show. Also today in this segment, I'm at the Cody Park Railroad Museum in North Platte, Nebraska. The Cody Park Railroad Museum is located in Cody Park in North Platte, Nebraska, and located across from the Jim Carpenter Memorial Softball Field complex. Softball field. Also, the Cody Park Railroad Museum is open from 10 to 7 from May 1st to late September, like the last full week of September, year-round, and Sunday 10 to 5 is open those days. And visiting the museum is free. The Cody Park Railroad Museum has trains that were once used on the Union Pacific Railroad and a depot that used to be located in Hershey, Nebraska. A lot of railroad history. What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 2069.
Union Pacific 2069 was built by Pullman Car Company in 1914 and is a mail car used for the United States Mail Railway Post Office and is a mail car. Union Pacific 2069 was also used for mail trains on the Union Pacific Railroad in the past. Union Pacific 2069 is known as a Harriman heavyweight postal car, is one of six built for the Union Pacific by Pullman. Also, Union Pacific 2069 was later retired in 1968 and came to be on display at the Cody Park Railroad Museum where it is today. And during museum hours of operation, you could even walk through the car and see all the mail cubbies around and see what it was like to be on delivering mail while on trains as well. The Hershey Depot was originally located in Hershey, Nebraska, and is a former Union Pacific station, and was built in 1892. The Hershey Depot was used for passengers to buy a ticket and catch a train to go somewhere from Hershey, Nebraska, and arrive in Hershey as well. Also, the station was then retired as for people to catch a train or arrive in Hershey later on, then moved to North Platte, Nebraska to be part of the Cody Park Railroad Museum where it is today. Also, the station was refurbished and restored to be on display at the museum as well when it arrived.
Okay, you can see up above me the water tower. So this is what you pull to get over the spout when fueling water inside the engine. And also this one got retired and then put on display here at the Cody Park Railroad Museum. You can find it next to Union Pacific 3977 Tender. I think it was built in the 1930s.
Union Pacific 25161 was built by Pullman Standard Manufacturing Company in Michigan City, Indiana in 1944 and is a CA4 class steel caboose. This caboose is one of many steel Union Pacific cabooses used behind freight trains in the past on the Union Pacific line. Also, Union Pacific 25161 has on the sides in the white rectangle saying in words, "Safety is everybody's business." Union Pacific 25161 was then renumbered as Union Pacific 3861 in 1959, then went back to its original number. Union Pacific 25161 was then 25161 was then wrecked on August 9, 1971 at North Platte, Nebraska. Then Union Pacific 25161 was then retired in 1977, donated to a group in North Platte, Nebraska, which had been organized on July 19, 1970 and got repaired and then donated to North Platte, Nebraska to be part of the Cody Park Railroad Museum where it is today. Also, you can walk inside the caboose and look around inside as well as you're doing on the exterior during museum hours as well.
Right behind me is
Union Pacific 6922 was built by Electromotor Division in 1969 and is the 34,548th diesel built by that factory, and it is a DDA-40X type and also known as a Centennial. Union Pacific 6922 is the 23rd DDA-40X, also known as Centennial, ever built for the Union Pacific Railroad and is one of 47 that were built. Also, Union Pacific 6922 worked as a freight locomotive on the Union Pacific Railroad. The name Centennial was used to mark the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in May 1869 at Promontory, Utah. Then, in 1986, Union Pacific 6922 was later retired and then donated to the Cody Park Railroad Museum in North Platte, Nebraska, where it is today. Also, Union Pacific 6922 is one of 13 surviving DDA-40X, X's, also known as Centennials, left in the world today, and can be found here at Cody Park, the Cody Park Railroad Museum in North Platte, Nebraska, where it is today. And you can even visit the locomotive's cab and even walk around the deck by the motor doors and even sit where the engineer and freight conductor used to sit on the locomotive as well. And whenever you're on ground level by the locomotive, you can even ring the locomotive's bell also.
That's how it's done. What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 1350.
Union Pacific 1350 was built by the American Car and Foundry Company in Kenton, Ohio in 1927 and is a baggage car. Union Pacific 1350 was originally delivered as baggage dormitory car, Union Pacific 2760, and is a car constructed for passenger train service and equipped to handle baggage, express mail, merchandise, or similar products, and is one of 7 built by the factory it was built in. Also, then was converted to a postal storage car by the Union Pacific and renumbered as Union Pacific 1350 in 1927. Then later was retired and came to be on display at the Cody Park Railroad Museum in North Platte, Nebraska, and displayed. And you can find the exhibits inside the coach as well, as this car can be seen here on display at the museum.
Okay, right now I'm going to show you the exhibits inside this baggage car, so come along. Here in the baggage coach, you could find a lot of displays. Here's an old schedule board. Another one. Here's a miniature steam engine. And this is a 484 Northern engine 1927, or is it the year 1927 it was built? Also, you can see a lot of dioramas. And here's a track thing. And here's a lot of pictures and a lot of tracks and wrenches, and this is a rail bike. Here's some gauges, and here's a mannequin. Here's some pictures. And if you ever visit this place, feel free to view those. Here's a bench, and that's the model of Union Pacific 809, which was scrapped a long time ago. Here's some heavyweight passenger cars. Union Pacific 607, an Alco diesel, box cars, and passenger cars, and a lot. Here's a big whistle, and here are more pictures. Let me show you them real quick. Platte Valley Route, Omaha. That's Union Pacific 3985, the sister of the Challenger here at Cody Park. And here's a lot of pictures. Here's Union Pacific 4023, which is in Omaha, Nebraska at Kennefic Park. And these are the Union Pacific Railroad presidents from the past. Okay, you can see what that thing is behind me up there. That's a railroad signal. This signal was used on mainline trains, and it's a hand signal to tell that you go, so we go down. And this is a retired railroad signal, and I think it was used for the Union Pacific Railroad. And it's here on display at the Cody Park Railroad Museum in North Platte, Nebraska. And you can even be seen by the Platte Challenger as well. What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 3977.
Union Pacific 3977 was built by Alco in Schenectady, New York in 1943 and is the 70,160th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 4664 Challenger type steam locomotive and is a 46,644 class steam locomotive. Union Pacific 3977 was used for the Union Pacific Railroad and lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and was used for freight and passenger service on the Union Pacific Railroad and was originally built to burn coal. Union Pacific 3977 also had been renumbered as Union Pacific 3710 in 1952 and was converted to burn oil. Also, Union Pacific 3977 was then retired in 1968 and then donated to the city of North Platte, Nebraska, and then put to be part of the Cody Park Railroad Museum, where it is today on display. Also, Union Pacific 3977 is one of two remaining 4664 Challengers that survive today. And Challenger 3985 is the other one and lives in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And 3977 can be found here at Cody Park, the Cody Park Railroad Museum in North Platte, Nebraska, where it is today. And you can even visit the cab of the locomotive and even sit where the engineer and fireman used to sit as well. Also, Union Pacific 3977 has had some parts given to 3985 as well, which was the oil tank, and when 3977 came to be part of the Cody Park Railroad Museum, the locomotive didn't have the elephant ears, which are the smoke deflectors, but was still painted black when then, like in the late 1980s or the late 1990s, got the smoke deflector set on the locomotive, and the locomotive intender got painted a two-tone gray color, which it is still presently.
What you see right behind me is Union Pacific 458 266.
Union Pacific Fruit Growers Express 458,266 was built, I believe, in somewhere in the 1930s, 1940s, or 1950s, or later on, or earlier, and is a refrigerator car. Union Pacific 458,266 was a refrigerator car that once carried food that would be kept refrigerated and is known as Union Pacific Fruit Growers Express 458,266. Union Pacific 458,266 for short. Also, Union Pacific Fruit Growers Express 458,266 was also used behind freight trains on the Union Pacific Railroad. Also, Union Pacific Fruit Growers Express 458,266 was vandalized with graffiti on one time while being used on freight trains, then was cleaned up, and then like in 2009 or maybe mid-2010 or before summer 2010, because I remember when I didn't recognize this car when I first visited this museum, and this car just happened to be here. Union Pacific Fruit Growers Express 458,266 was then retired, then came to be part of the Cody Park Railroad Museum in North Platte, Nebraska, where it is today.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about trains with me today, and not the last train guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment, so this is not too last. Hope